Now let's get on to the spiritual benefits. Sure, the research shows there's physical benefits, but what's more important are there spiritual benefits from getting outside. Let's spend some time now exploring those. Does God want us to get outside? Good question. Well, if God didn't want us to get outside, why would He make it beneficial for us to be outside, right? I'm sure He does. But what about Jesus? What did He do? Well, let's look at His example. It says in Mark 1:35, in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went away to a secluded place and was praying there. So Jesus got out and went to a secluded place outside, and He spent time in prayer. You know, the gospel writers mention over a dozen times where Jesus went out to a quiet place, a secluded place, the wilderness, to meet with His Father and be alone with Him there. Why did Jesus do that? And why did the gospel writers mention that He did that? In Luke 5:16, it says this, but Jesus Himself would often slip away to the wilderness and pray. So Jesus did it, and the gospel writers mentioned it. But so often, people read their Bibles and go right over those verses, or pastors, they never teach on them. But it was important to Jesus, and it was important enough that the gospel writers wrote about it. Now, Mark chapter 6 is an interesting chapter because there's a lot in it. It starts with Jesus preaching in Nazareth, and He's not accepted in His hometown. And after that, He sends out his 12 disciples, 2 by 2, to go out and preach the gospel. And then when He does that, He sends them out. And while they're gone, John the Baptist's disciples come to Him and tell Him that John has been beheaded. So Jesus and John were cousins, so he finds out his cousin is beheaded. And this is all in Mark chapter 6. So now it says that Jesus wants to get away. He wants to get away to the wilderness, to be alone, to contemplate what happened. He just lost his cousin in a horrible way. But at this time, the apostles come back to Jesus, and they're all excited. They want to say, hey, guess what happened? And Jesus says, let's come away to a quiet place. Jesus says they need to debrief, and He wants to take them to a quiet place to do that. But what happens when they do this? Well, people see Him doing it, and they all go off and follow Him. And then Jesus starts preaching to those people. And because they're in a secluded area, there's no food. And before He sends them away, Jesus wants to feed them. So He goes ahead and feeds the 5,000. So Jesus feeds all these people, and then He sends them away. So they're in a secluded place. He sends them away. They could go home now. They have food. And then He says to the disciples, He sends them off in a boat. He says, go off to the other side and I'll meet you there. He doesn't tell them how He's going to get there, right? He's going to walk on water to get there, but He sends them off. And what does Jesus do? The Bible says, Mark says He went to the mountain alone to pray. So then He goes back to the disciples. He walks on water, finds them, and you know the rest of the story. But the thing is, all this is going on, and several times Jesus is trying to get away. And we hear messages from pastors all about this stuff that goes on, but we never hear messages about Jesus trying to get away and telling the disciples to get away. So Jesus knew the quiet of creation was a great place for Him to go to draw close to His Father there. And we can draw close to the Father and meet with Him in the quiet of creation as well. So does God want us to get outside? Yes, He wants us to get outside. why else would he want us to get outside? Well, it gets us away from the noise, right? There's so much noise out there, right? Today,